Serious, people that have willingly engaged in incest. Why? Has your life changed because of it? I'm counting step siblings. It just sort of happened. Our parents got married and a couple years later we still hadn't developed a family bond of any sort. Still haven't. It started when a friend was over and had a huge crush on me. So they crash in on me when I'm just relaxing in the hot tub. We also had a pool and it was late fall so it was super cold. So a dare happened to switch back and forth between the pool and hot tub. This started a game of truth or dare and things got a bit sexual. Stuff like being naked in the bubbles of the hot tub but we couldn't see anything. Then stuff like sitting on my lap and whatnot. Nothing more happened that night but a couple days later we are both in the hot tub and start daring again. Things start to go the way they went before but again nothing. My mom and her dad went to sleep super early so we could really do this whenever. The dares started happening out of the hot tub and in the woods and from there it began to escalate. I dare you to jerk off or I dare you to take all your clothes off. It just kept escalating until we just sort of grinded on each other. We were both 13. Until we both came. That happened a few more times because neither of us could get a condom and then I stayed at my dad's all summer and we stopped doing that stuff. We never mentioned it to anybody and as far as each of us know the other has forgotten all about it. TLDR it escalated slowly. I've never actually engaged in incest, but got pretty close obliviously. I was maybe 12 or younger. Like, I was a child. And we'd usually go further south to my grandma's house to stay a couple of weeks while my parents did whatever they did. This was my grandmother on my dad's side of the family. So rednecks. I have a cousin who used to live next to my grandma's house, and she'd come over occasionally to play with us. She was a couple of years older, in high school. She would always try to wrestle with me, and take me into the woods, or a bedroom alone. I was completely oblivious to what she was trying to do, and wouldn't go into the woods with her because I was afraid of bobcats and snakes. She never got to do anything to me, because my grandma is awesome, and a pretty keen lady, even to this day. Though, when we wrestled she usually got to pin me in an awkward position that I'd feel uncomfortable in. If I would have known what she was going for, I honestly might have accepted it. Maybe a kiss at most, out of curiosity, but I'd definitely end up regretting it. I never thought I would get to share this. I didn't do it but I have a story regarding this. A day after our prom ended many of our classmate, imagine 2/5 of the batch, met the next day at a friend's home. The house was quite big and we partied hard until we reached the bed of the night. We all were playing a game where we would draw out 2 names from the bowl and both of them had to make out inside a spare guest room and most of this cases ended up full blown 6. This was the last round we played. Most of us were drunk. We pulled out 2 names. They turn out to be brother and sister. Now being big idiots and pretty much assholes, we started to chant for them to make out and started to push them into the guest room. We were just joking and they just played along with it. So we locked them in and waited 5 to 10 minutes then opened the door to end the round. We expected them to be angry and just sitting there to open the door. Instead the brother was balls deep, instead her sister. It was the most gross thing you could ever see in your lifetime. Both of them quickly ran out of the house. Later we came to know that it was a first time event and heat of the moment situation. I met a friend last year who told me nobody their family knows nothing happened between them and it's turned very awkward between them. I had sex with my cousin when we were both 17. It was consensual and there were never any guilty feelings from either side. We only had sex the one time but I think it was because we both fell into long-term relationships shortly after we slept together. Our relationship never changed after we slept together. This was over 20 years ago and we still talk on a pretty regular basis with no weirdness. Okay, so 2 years ago-ish, my best friend hooked me up with her friend who was in a lot of my classes so I knew her a bit well since I basically knew everyone. We all were planning a double date basically, and that was in like 2 weeks. The 3 of us hung out numerous times and she'd always try to hold my hand or come onto me. I always jerked away because it always felt weird and I had no idea why. I just figured it's because I'm awkward and never really been in a relationship. This kept going and I just decided to end it because I wasn't comfortable. A week later she's taking pictures of my other cousin on my dad's side who I don't know that well because he kind of abandoned my mom and I and is in and out of jail all the time. Turns out, She knew the whole time we were cousins and thought I knew too. I guess my weird instincts were right. Welcome to Indiana. Also sorry for ducked up paragraphs. On mobile and still getting used to it. My family isn't really close at all. We used to have a family reunion every year and even then only a select few would show up. When we'd have family reunions, someone would always do something stupid and get hurt. So we decided to stop having family reunions. Before we stopped, we had one last big family reunion that everyone was going to come to. There were a lot of members of our family that we had never met. I was about 12 years old. My oldest brother was about 14. He was always the coolest kid around. Matured at a very young age and was very muscular. All the girls loved him wherever we went. We drove to this very small town where the next day we'd be having our reunion. After getting there, me and my two brothers were walking around looking at everything. My brother spotted two girls about our age and insisted we start talking to them. The older of the two seemed very similar to my brother. Very mature for her age. Attractive. Outgoing. And it was very obvious she was into my brother. My other brother and I, who did not feel the need to mate at every second of every day, had kind of put together that in this very small town that was hosting a family reunion with lots of family members we hadn't met, might not be the best time to pick up women. After talking to them for a while, we figured out we were related. My oldest brother and the older girl had no idea. We thought it would be best to let them be embarrassed tomorrow when the reunion started. Nothing too big happened. We went to a hot springs and sat in there with them for a while. They got quite touchy with each other and made out. My brother bragged all night about the hot girl he had seduced. The next day, we walked into this big barn type building with tables laid out across them. My mom started introducing us to ask our cousins we hadn't met. Lo and behold, she introduced us to a very mature, attractive, and outgoing girl that had been sucking on my brother's face the day before. The looks of embarrassment were absolutely priceless. My other brother and I had burst out laughing, along with the girl's sister. We never told anyone and just enjoyed the awkward embarrassment throughout the day. I posted this in another question before and I'm too lazy to rewrite it all, so here it is. When I was 15, I'm female. My younger brother, 14, and I lived in an almost psychotically sheltered home. We bounced around foster homes a lot. But this was by far the most restrictive. Our foster parents were incredibly religious and overprotective. They never had kids of their own, so they didn't really know how to parent. I guess it was clear that they cared about us deeply, and they didn't intend to hurt us or make our lives difficult. That much was obvious. They were just misguided. They homeschooled us and kept us home almost 100% of the time. We rarely got any outside interaction except when friends of theirs would bring their children over to visit. It was brutal on our mental state. Both he and I went for months without any sexual release and barely any contact with the opposite sex outside of each other. Eventually I could take it anymore. So I went to the bathroom to masturbate in the early hours of the morning when I was sure our foster parents were asleep. Apparently my brother had the same idea. We were both extremely sexually frustrated, and I couldn't take it anymore. Although it was consensual, at the time I kind of felt that I forced him into having sex with me. He was hesitant, since he didn't want me to regret it in the future, but I insisted. So, he accepted. It was probably my biggest regret for most of my life after that, and I feared that he had deep-seated resentment for me. He's pretty much the only family I had left, and I was afraid that I would lose him too due to my selfishness. It took over 10 years for me to finally go to him and ask for forgiveness, and to my surprise he wasn't mad at all. It was a huge relief, and he and I aren't awkward around each other anymore. Kinda related. My cousin and I were about 6 years old on holiday in caravans. Our parents were outside and we were in my caravan with my brother. I can't remember exactly how it started, but somehow I was lying down on a seat with her straddling me and kissing me. I did it because she was good looking and apparently she thought I was too. And we were too young to care that we were related. My brother said we were in a lot of trouble, but I don't remember that. I just remember seeing my mum looking in the window and panicking. I don't know if that's changed my life or if I was going to be a little ducked up anyway. More than she wasn't panicking. As far as I remember, I was. Nobody will ever read this, but whatever. From the age of 14, My older sister 16 and I had to share a bed. We weren't rich. 2-bedroom house with 4 of us. Just after I joined secondary school, my sister started to masturbate me when I was asleep. Started off with basic things like her feeling my D while I was asleep, putting her hands down my trousers and just feeling my D etc. Of course she thought I was sleeping. This went on for about 7-8 months until one day we got into a fight and I told her I'll tell my dad what she does. She denied it. At that point it kinda stopped. Then I started to try and initiate it by touching her. Cut the long story short, it became normal for us and we ended up giving each other oral sex until she moved out at 22. We're very touchy-feely with each other. We never had sex, but I always fantasize about us now. I can't ducking stop it. I let my cousin duck me from the age of about 12 until we were both 17. We were always playmates as babies, and when we started going through puberty I guess he saw how lonely I was and we were both horny. It was super awkward the first time it happened, but after it started it was a constant nightly thing when we were together. I am thankful for the experience because it was hard growing up an only child and he made it a little easier. I lost my virginity to my foster sister when we were 5 or 6. My older brother explained the mechanics of it, so we tried. I won't go into pervy details. It was not traumatic to me. Can't speak for her. She was already in foster care though. I doubt I was the trauma in her life. This was the early 70s. No idea where she is today. Does this count? My third cousin had an obsession with anal sex and had me regularly duck her in the ass. We didn't even know we were related at first. We were friends at the time who had a talk about sex and decided to duck for fun. But after we found out, though surprised, we regularly made trips to O-Ring Plowtown. Still fantasize about dad ass to this day. My wife's family has multi-generational incest, to the point that she only has 3 sets of great-grandparents. There are no signs of problems in her generation, and they all married way outside the family tree. Last year's night, I started to engage sexually with my first cousin. She was 16. I was 17, male. At first, we just made out, but it slowly progressed to hand jobs from her and fingering from me. Soon, she was giving me blowjobs and well, we wanted to do more but we couldn't find a way to do it without getting noticed. This year, though, we worked it out and managed to do it. We did it 2 times while we were drunk. I can't say I disliked it or I feel guilty or anything. It is amazing. We are both horny as duck. She's hot and thinks I'm hot as well. I only see her once or twice a year, but I always look forward to it. I don't give a it. Slept with my long lost half sister. At the time I thought we were in love. I confessed everything to the police. Ended up on the sex offenders register and completely ruined my life. That was 10 years ago. I still haven't and expect I won't ever recover. My cousin and I kissed and had very obvious crushes on each other when we were little, like 6 or 7. Eventually we grew out of it, but we were always close. We were even roommates in college, but that didn't end super well and right now, we're kind of resentful of each other. I had a sexual relationship with my cousin, M, for a few years. It started when I was 14 and he was 16. He stayed at my house for a week and we tried to have sex but I was scared so we just did oral and I got fingered. He left the top of a condom wrapper out in the open and we almost got caught. Then for the next few years up until we were about 17 and 19 we oral sexed, make out, and if we could visit overnight and not just for a few hours we would have sex. I'd always felt lust towards him and at 12 and 14 we did almost have an encounter in a pool. We went by ourselves and he said he couldn't swim so he stayed pretty much on each other the entire time we were in there. My aunt let us share a bed that night and we cuddled. I don't feel bad or gross now but we don't talk. He wanted a relationship but we would have had to keep it a secret and I've always wanted kids and I know having kids with my first cousin could cause major issues. I had to break it off. I upset him and I feel guilty about it but now it seems like he moved on just fine. I'm in a long-term relationship with my biological half-sister on my mother's side. I'm a male. We didn't grow up together. We actually didn't meet until we were both almost 30. Never knew each other at all until that point. I had been trying to get in touch with her on and off for a decade or more. In a desire to meet the long lost sibling and try to connect as family, I finally succeeded via online social networks and a bit of social engineering. We talked, purely online, on and off for about 6 months with some mostly unacknowledged sexual tension making us both very uncomfortable. When we did finally acknowledge it, it came together very quickly and very powerfully. At the time, we were both in serious relationships. I was in a non-monogamous relationship and she was actually engaged and fully monogamous. My SO knew all the details, was 100% okay with it. Her fiance obviously had no idea. We agreed to meet up. We had a week of incredible sex and an insanely intense emotional connection equaled by no other relationship in my life, romantic or otherwise. It was a heady week. Not long after that, we both ended our contemporary relationships, surprisingly mostly amicably on her end. Hell, blood and fire on my end. No, I will not be telling that story. I moved to be with her and we've going good ever since. This is a true story, and I've attempted not to editorialize. I am a writer by trade, so some unintentional embellishment may have snuck in. I'll answer some questions, but probably not in a satisfactory way. This relationship is absolutely illegal where we live, and a very select few people know about it. Yes, my brother and I engage in it every day. We've been together for 6 years and have 2 kids. It started because I was horny and just wanted to get laid. Turned into a relationship. My life changed a lot because of it. All the plans I had for after high school got thrown out the window, but it was worth it. I'm pretty sure my sister and dad had an incestuous relationship. They were obsessed with each other. She was like his house pet. She never had a relationship or a job. He just lived in the condo he bought her and got fat. She died 2 years ago and he still keeps her place the same as it was. My cousin and I, she's a 22YO girl, I'm a 26YO guy, started texting. She's had a crush on me since we were tiny. I didn't think she was attractive until she was around 18. But she clearly has liked me for as long as we've been alive. The texting quickly escalated to sexting and flirting all the way to pictures. When we met face to face the next time at a family thing, she was with her boyfriend but totally ignored him and was all over me. It was a little awkward because we were clearly digging each other, but it seemed like her boyfriend could tell. If he wasn't there, I'm sure we would have figured out a way to smash. But nothing has happened physically between us yet. And I'll admit that the whole taboo factor has definitely made us more into it. I don't really care. It seems really convenient and I can't really ignore how strong the urge is. So yeah, that's been my experience so far. From the moment we met, my half-sister and I were absolutely in love at first sight. We had a long, wonderful, secret relationship with each other for about 10 years. But taboo is a powerful force, and nearly getting caught forced us apart. She's with someone and has been for a long time now. I've been married for about that long too. Many people comment on how much my wife and her boyfriend resemble my sister and me, respectively. I still think about it sometimes. I miss her terribly. Best lover I ever had, and still my best friend. I had a cousin molest me when I was a lot younger. I was only like 5. And he was 15-16. I didn't really know what was going on, or that it was bad or anything, so I wasn't really traumatized, but I didn't exactly enjoy it either. He definitely orchestrated it, though. DK. It was just one of those things later on in life I was like, oh that happened. Like, there was no penetration. We kinda just made out and like touched each other's D's. It was weird and uncomfortable at the time for me. Happened once or twice. Then it kinda just stopped. I should clarify. We're both straight. Or at least I am. He's married to a woman now with kids. Nobody else in my family knows about it to this day. And that's fine. I'm past it. Well, it happened but too long ago. It started at the beginning of the year actually. She's only a year older than me, 20, and she was visiting from the Netherlands. I had only met her once before and that was many years ago. Well, I actually didn't even know she was my cousin until we met again this year. But she was staying over my house for about 2 months and one night me, her and my brother and his girlfriend all go out to this bar. Me and my cousin got really drunk and ended up getting back home at like 2 AM. We had a guest room which is where she was sleeping and I had followed her downstairs for reasons that I don't remember. but the way it started was very innocent. Just touching and staring. But then she gave me a kiss on the lips and it started to escalate more and more from there until we finally just had sex. For the remainder of her stay we would just do that on a regular basis. Lots of making out and blowjobs. I had to cut it off because I found out she was pregnant. Not mine thankfully, and I just didn't want to deal with that since she lives so far away and since we're first cousins. It was a lot of fun and I really don't regret any of it. I was horny and she was very adventurous and hot. I didn't willingly engage in incest, but my brother did. When I was about 8 years old, female, and my brother was about 13. He would eat me out when he thought I was asleep on the couch or when we would hang out in his room while he played video games and I watched. This lasted for about 3 years. I didn't really know that it was bad since I was a child, so I'll let him do it, but it definitely felt weird. When I was in school though, health teachers would talk to the class about sexual abuse and that if someone was touching you in places you didn't want to be touched, you should tell someone. I still thought that it was okay. I never did anything to him though, and I don't like when he touches me now, and I don't like wearing pajamas that don't cover everything when I'm around him. We're both out of the house now. I'm in college. He's living in an apartment working as a manager at Target. I had serious commitment issues during relationships for a while. I did not want to have someone eat me out for a long time, and if I have a male gynecologist I start crying. So yeah. It definitely changed my life to a negative degree. I had sex with my bio mother. She'd given me up for adoption so I never knew her growing up. I tracked her down, and when we met for the first time the sexual connection was electric. She took my virginity that first day. I've been living with her for the last 2 years now, and we still duck like rabbits almost every night. Honestly, it's sorta ruined my life. It's been rough having to keep a secret from the world. We can't pretend to be a normal couple. We are decently close in age. Why she gave me up, teen mom, but too many people knew about my search for her and would connect the dots. So we have to pass as a normal mother and son. It kills me having to lie to my adoptive family. My real family basically. I have to lie to my friends who I've known for my whole life. And everyone I meet from now on. And it's terrifying that at any moment the truth could be out if we're not careful enough. But it feels like it's so worth it. I love my bio mom and she loves me. We're soul mates. We are made for each other. Well, more like I was made for her. Right now we're sort of just taking it one day at a time. But something has to give and I'm scared of what comes next. My girlfriend has a mild crush on her brother. I realized it at some point and since we are quite into roleplay and BDSM I've been ducking her for almost a year while she screams her brother's name and she really likes it. Not just fantasy. I've talked to her about it outside sex and she really likes her brother and would duck him given the chance. Her brother is hot as duck, 2 years younger than we are, and he is the typical gay guy completely blind to his own gay side. He has a girlfriend and everything. Every time he acts manly my girlfriend gets wet, but most of the time she can handle it by looking at him like a gay guy. I've been trying to push her to show more of her body when he is around and to test the ground, but without luck. She still sees a gay guy and that relaxes her.